So we moved.
All right, say something. Got it. Okay. You have to start over. Start over with green cough. So.
Yeah, we moved out in Florida in January, and moved all of our furnishings up to Greencroft. We lived in the housing area, Maple Court, for the first. We lived there 14 years. We lived there as long as Catherine was living. She went to the nursing home, and I moved. I stayed there. She went to the nursing home in March. She died in April, and I lived there until October, and then I contracted pneumonia and was in the hospital and nursing home rehab for 20 days, and I came back and moved into in January, moved into assisted living, and lived there in assisted living for 2 years. It was very, very expensive there, and so I decided I didn't need all that care. I wasn't using all of it. Everything was furnished there, 24-hour nursing service and all, but I didn't need all that in my health condition. So with the help of Dave, I got moved into this housing area with I lived in one room in the assisted living, and here I have a living room and a bedroom. I do all of my work and everything, but it's $20,000 a month cheaper than living in that assisted living place. So it's been more of the places fits in with my finances, and a place that so far I can well take care of. I have to do all my own cleaning and all my own laundry and everything here. But so far I've been able to do that, and I eat my main meal. I don't do any cooking for the main meal. I have a main meal 6 days a week up here at the dining room, and I get a well-rounded out meal there for my dinner meal, and then and supper and breakfast I just have cereal for breakfast and sandwich and fruit for supper. So I do very little cooking, but all the rest of the housework I do here, and so far I'm very well able to do it. And that's about where I am today. I discovered 2 weeks ago, developed a terrible pain, and I called the night number of my doctor, and he thought I'd better go right to the hospital, that I might have bowel blockage or gallstones, the way the pain was. So he sent me right over right over to the nursing home, and they took a CAT scan and found out I had tumors on both of my kidneys. Been there for some time, I guess. I don't know how long or how old they were, but none of my doctors or anybody had any indication that there was any growth on both of my kidneys. So as of now, I'm under the care of a kidney specialist, but nobody knows how fast growing these things are or how dangerous they are. They don't know very much about them, and so nobody knows. I feel about the same as I did before I went in, because I knew nothing about them then, and since I was, until I got that pain that night, I had no indication. My health was good, and after I got rid of that whatever it was that was bothering me that night, the pain, which left me the next day, the pain left. I had considerable bleeding, urinary bleeding, but that lasted 2 or 3 days. But that's all cured up now, so I feel just the same as I did before. And nobody knows how long this thing will go along, whether it be fast moving or slow, and whether that may be at my age, 97 years old, that may not even be be my last illness. So I guess that's about it for my life. That's where I stand today.
Did we miss any significant events?
Huh?
Did we miss any significant events that in your life that we should talk about?
No, yeah, I guess the main thing for as long as I was going to Florida and since I retired, all I did was play golf morning and afternoon. Did no volunteer work or anything. And when I come to Greencroft, I started putting in, for the first time in my life since my retirement, I started in with many hours of volunteered work, and have continued that right straight through to today. About 18 years we've lived in Greencroft now, and I've continued volunteering all those 18 years, which was a great satisfaction to Catherine, because she always volunteered work and thought I was wasting my life, which I was, by playing golf and nothing else. Not even Catherine wasn't interested in golf, so I spent quite a few of my days, winter and summer, away from home on the golf course. Waste of time. That's about it, I guess, for my life. I can't think of anything that we left out.
Do you have any words of wisdom to pass on to your future? Do you have any words of wisdom to pass on to your future generations?
People always say older people should have words of wisdom. The only words of wisdom I have that others don't know is how a person feels at 97. I can tell you a lot about life at 97. It's how you feel and all, but that's the only words of wisdom that I can tell you about. That one of the things, especially wisdom-wise, that other people don't know. That's the only wisdom that I have that I can really expound on. How a person feels at 97, and nobody knows the things they want me to do and the things that they think that I should be doing. They don't know how a person feels at my age. It's a lot of difference, and getting more and more of a task to live, and more and more unable to do things that I've done all my life.
So anything particular that you think is you led a pretty long life here, a lot longer than most people. Anything in particular that any habits you have that?
No, in fact, I've done nothing much to enhance my health and make my health better. In fact, I've drank sometimes pretty heavy, but mostly for 50 or 60 years I've had at least 2 drinks a day, and usually in the afternoon I'd have a couple of drinks. But sometimes I've been on parties and things that I've had many drinks. But and I smoked, which is 60 years. I didn't quit smoking till I was about 90-some. Started out just as soon as I got out of high school. I never smoked in school when I was in athletics, but as soon as I got out of high school, I started smoking cigarettes, and smoked until I was in my 90s. I never smoked heavy. I always smoked, unless I was drinking or something, and I'd smoke heavier, but usually a half a pack a day. And I wouldn't inhale deeply. I didn't inhale deeply. I inhaled some, but not deeply like some people do. So that probably had something to do it not injuring my health, but since I've never had any lung trouble so far, and up till now, apparently don't have. I stopped smoking at about 91 or 92, and I stopped drinking at the same time, altogether. Just cut out both of them, which has been good for me probably. But it's a wonder that the smoking hasn't been a handicap to me. My goodness, I'm living until 97, never had really ill effects of smoking.
So you've always, since you've been here at Greencroft, you've walked quite a bit.
Oh yes, well of course I walked on the golf course. I've always done a lot of exercise. Since I've been retired, I've done a lot more exercising than I did when I was working, really, because I did a lot of desk work when I was in my last years of work. Of course, I was on my feet about 25 or 30 years when I was just in the departmental managing. But when I got to be merchandise manager, I spent a lot of time sitting in an office. So, but since I retired, I've done an awful lot of exercising every day. So that's probably been a health. But another thing, that of all the genealogy we have, and Catherine had an awful lot of it, that nobody has ever lived into the 90s. My mother lived a couple of months, I think, after 90, but nobody in all the charts that she had and everything, and all through the years that she's kept, and it was a genealogy from way back. Nobody has lived to be 90. They all died in the high 80s. Not a soul lived to be 90. And I, of course, Catherine lived to be 93. She had a bad heart all her life. She had some sort of disease when she was young that would give her a bad heart. And all her life she had a bad heart. She always played a lot. She played basketball when she was working, and I guess some in high school. And she always was pretty active. And when she was 90-some, she went to her heart specialist. She's always under the heart doctors, under doctor's care, and said that her aorta, her valve, was calcifying fast, and she probably wouldn't live 2 years unless he'd give her a new valve. Which at that time they had just the mechanical valve, that they didn't have the pig valve like they have in later years, and it wasn't too satisfactory. So she knew people that had it done, and they advised her not to go through with it. And the doctor said she'd only live 2 years, she lived 10. Yeah. 10 years after that. And a pretty healthy life until she went blind, and then of course she couldn't exercise at all. She's just sitting in her chair there knitting day after day after day for 4 years, and so that probably had something to do with her death. But she lived 10 years very healthily with that bad valve that was calcifying. I think it's 3 centimeters is the usual size of the entrance, and it was down. Hers was down to 1 to 1 1/4 centimeters.
A lot of work for the heart to do, I guess.
Oh yes, all strain on her heart. So just very fortunate, I think, that she did live that long and a fairly healthy life. A lot longer than the doctors thought to, and even her. That's the heart doctor that told her she had to have the new valve or die. But even her own doctor give up on what he could do for her. He says, "Catherine, there's not much the doctors can do for you. It's unless you want to change that valve, we've done about everything we can. She had terrible, well, she did have terrible arthritis, yeah. She suffered, yeah. That's one thing, she suffered with terrible arthritis. She was taking, last few years of her life, she took all the pain pills that they would give her. She had the limit of what they'd give her in pain pills. And she took that for 3 or 4 years, and she did suffer with pain. I'd rub her legs by the hour where they'd hurt and be painful. And it bothered her in her sleep, yeah. Yeah. She never complained too much, so I guess that's maybe the reason I hadn't mentioned it up till now.
So she played basketball when she was young?
Yeah. High school, and when in the company she worked for in Chicago, she played on their team. Yeah.
Did she do other sports?
Huh?
What else did she do when she was young?
Well, not much in other sports that I know of. She's always a great student, of course.
So it's kind of unusual for a woman to play basketball in those days.
Well, Cassopolis had a girls' basketball team, which she was on, and the firm in Chicago had their own team she was on. So I guess maybe there was several girls' basketball teams around. They wore bloomers. They didn't wear what the girls wear today. They wore those great long bloomers that come down over the knees. Both high school and in her work basketball team, all wore bloomers.
And what did they wear on the top?
Huh?
On top?
Blouse. Well, I guess they had sleeveless tops, but no shorts.
What were the basketball shoes like in those days?
Huh?
You played basketball too, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What were the shoes like?
Well, we had our own shoes. They weren't just regular tennis shoes. All I ever had. High tops. I always wore high tops, tennis shoes, but they're just tennis shoes that we bought at the store. None of these fancy tennis shoes. $2 or $3 a pair, I guess they cost at that time. Everybody bought their own shoes. I don't know whether high schools furnish them today or not. Another thing, I don't think they ever laundered from once the season started to the end. I don't think they ever laundered our suits. Just we had a practice suit that we put on during the week, and then game nights we had another suit, so that was a little bit cleaner. But I think our other suits we wore for the entire season. Same way with football jackets. Same with football tops. We wore those jerseys, I think, all season long without ever being laundered. They might have laundered once or twice, I don't know. But we never had to launder them.
What kind of football equipment did you have?
Well,
What did you wear for a helmet and pads?
well, there were very, very odd helmets, kind of a flat top helmet and very little padding. Ear flaps on them, but nothing like the helmets of today. Most of them were soft, kind of a softer helmet, as I remember. And they were flat topped, and the pants were pretty well padded. Maybe a little bit better than today. They usually wore hip pads up around your back here. The hip pads come up about here and almost to your lower ribs and all through the back. And then I noticed lately they don't even pad their knees. Our knees always had a pad, and we had pads here, so they were always well padded for the football trousers. Our shoulder pads were not as they are today. They just slipped with rubber bands, I think, underneath it, and a little over the top. Not near as good shoulder protection as they are today, but we did have shoulder pads, and the helmets were nothing as good as they did today. A lot of concussions, a lot more head injuries than they have today with the modern helmets.
Now, what else did you do? You ran track?
I ran track pole vault. I didn't run. I didn't do any running. I pole vaulted. I think my top pole vault was 9.5 feet or something like that. And I think I was third place in the conference or something like that. It was, the highest vaulting I think then was around 10, 11 feet, high as they vaulted. Nothing like today. Well, the poles were nothing like today. They were bamboo, made of bamboo poles. One time, my pole broke right in the air, and I lit on the back of my neck and shoulders. Luckily, I didn't break anything, or I could have broken my neck. But it folded up when I was just going up into the air, and I come right down on my neck and shoulders. Knocked the wind out of him, but that was about all. I got right up. I don't think I had any. I think I went right back in. That was at noontime when I was playing around, vaulting, and I think I went back into school that afternoon. So I was very, very fortunate there. It just collapsed all of a sudden, and I was probably maybe 7 or 8 feet in the air, just going up to go over. Very fortunate.
What did you land on the other side of the pole vault? Was it?
We had sand on the other side, and I missed the place where the rod went into there's a rubber plate that went across there where your pole vault went in, or pole went into before you rose, and I missed that, and it lit in the sand, but on my neck and shoulders. We had a big sand pile at the back of every pole vaulting place. No rubber mat. I think they have rubber mats today that they land on. Of course, they pole vault 18, 19 feet now. A lot of difference in the pole vaulting of those days.
Yeah, well, the poles now are.
Yeah. They're nothing like a bamboo pole today. They've got a very sophisticated poles. Much better poles than. I don't think probably nobody uses bamboo poles anymore. That's all we had, and that's all as far as I know. Even in colleges, I think they still use bamboo poles. The new type of pole hadn't even come in. And I didn't run any of the races. I think pole vaulting was the only thing I didn't track. Basketball, in all the 4 years, I never was I was a substitute. I always played my second. We had a second team game and a first team game. And I always played the second team. I never got to be a first team regular. I always played my second, or there wasn't very many went out for the first team. I think there was only 7 or 8 on the whole squad, and that was a couple or 3 subs is all they had. And I dressed as a substitute in the first team, but I never got on the regular run of first team players. In all my 4 years, I always played on the regularly on the second team. Never got to be my brother got to be a first team player, but I never did. We always were pretty good in the conference, and we always went to Kalamazoo for playoff games. Never won. We never, in all the time I went up there, I played 2 or 3 years. We went up there as conference winners, and never got past the first game.
No.
Always lost in the first game.
How about football? How did you do in football?
Conference, we won the conference in football the last year I was there.
What position did you play?
Conference was what?
What positions did you play in football?
And
Offense?
Huh?
Offensive end?
Yeah. Well, offensive, defensive, both. You know, yeah, we didn't have any offensive and defensive teams. Some of them played defense all the time and not offense. We had some players that changed, but a lot of the players played both defense and offense. I think we only had I don't think we had full two teams, 24 players that came out for football. I think we only had 20 or so that came out for football. We never had enough to have a full 2 game scrimmage.
So you played end, does that mean you're like wide receiver, or does that mean
Huh?
does that mean like a wide receiver, or you're a blocking end?
Well, both. I was both. And I was end on both defense and offense. They didn't have an offensive end and a defensive. I was on. We played the full game. We never changed.
Did you catch passes then? Did they pass?
Oh yeah, I've got some. Catherine, your mother's got some articles about me and my football games, written in the papers. Did pretty good at receiver, as a pass receiver. And I played pretty steadily on both my junior and senior. Sophomore, I probably was not a regular, but junior and senior, I was on the team both years, first team both years, 2 years in a row. And as I say, we won the conference. The conference was, I think, 6 or 7 games, 6 or 7 teams, surrounding towns. We won them all that year. Never lost a game. We never lost a game in baseball either. I pitched in baseball. I was a pitcher in baseball. We never lost a game all season.
So was baseball and track both at the same time?
Well, no, there were different times when they played, but of course the same season. Both of them were spring seasons when the track meets, along with baseball was always a spring thing, and then track meets were always in the spring. I don't think we ever had any track meets in the fall, just spring. Both sports were in the spring, yeah. Different times, of course, from the baseball games.
You were a pitcher?
Yeah.
How many years did you do that?
2 years. I was a pitcher on the team. I remember one game I found 7 players in a row. And we won the conference that year. Never lost a game. Last year, I think the year before, we probably lost a game or 2. But both years we had very good baseball teams. A lot of the smaller schools played basketball, track, and baseball, but some of them didn't have. Some of the conference teams didn't have C-class schools. That's what we were in, C-class. They didn't have football teams. They had baseball and track and basketball teams, but no football teams. The town next to south of us had. We used to play on basketball and baseball, but they had no football team. But I guess we played a 7 or 8 game conference teams. Mostly we played just C schools. Originally, on the opening game, we played Niles, Michigan, which was a B class school. We always played Niles on the opening game, and that's the only team we played that was in the B class. All the rest of them were C class schools. All the rest of our competition.
anything else particularly memorable, like moon landing or
Like what?
any of that? You remember any particular things you were particularly?
Well, of course, I remember the moon landing, yeah, very vividly, and I guess you do too. That was in your time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, Kennedy, that was Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The atomic bomb. What did you think of that?
Well, of course, it was well known, and so far, I was concerned about that. I guess we're the only country that's dropped the atomic bomb. I don't think any other company has dropped the bomb. We did it, and I was not in favor of that. I thought it was terrible that we should bomb those two cities. As an example, we could have set off that bomb, and I'm sure we could have done the same thing without. What we killed 400,000 or 500,000 people in each of these towns that died of the atomic bomb. And I always was against Truman because he always thought that was a wonderful thing to do. That's what saved thousands of lives, but I'm not so sure it did. I think we'd have dropped that bomb and made the impression that Japan would have stopped just as quick if we'd have done it someplace else where they would have known about the damage it does, but wouldn't dropped it on those two cities. I thought that was not. I was very much against that.
You remember the time leading up to that? Did you?
Huh?
Were you surprised the war in Japan ended so quickly because of that, or do you expect it? Most people expected.
Well, no. I think the thing would have ended probably without the atomic bomb. I think it was pretty close. I think they were pretty well beaten before that. I can't say for sure, but the atomic bomb no doubt hurried it up somewhat. Well, the way it was done, my God, that was a terrible thing that we did to bomb those two cities, killing 400,000 or 500,000 in both cities, innocent people. God. I think we're the only country that ever did, and I think there's a lot of countries that hold that against us. Still do. And of course, I was always against war. I think that a lot of the wars we've been in, they've been imperial wars. Trying to the Spanish-American War, the World War, both World Wars, trying to put our type of government and people to other people's countries. And especially the Second World War, where there was no need for Hitler if the Allies would have stopped their reparations and let Germany heal itself instead of bleeding to death. It brought on Hitler.
Do you remember what you did on VE Day?
No, not particularly.
What VJ Day?
VE Day, I think I was in Grand Rapids that day that it stopped. I don't think I did anything particularly on it. Of course, it was all big news. Every media, radio, television, all was full of the coverage of the end of the war.
Right, when you see the pictures in Times Square of everybody dancing in the streets, and remember any of that?
Well, I suppose it'd been in the papers, yeah, I imagine, yeah. I suppose all those pictures would have been first page pictures. People celebrating a big celebration, of course, in Times Square, and other big cities too. I think even Grand Rapids had quite a. Grand Rapids is a county seat, and I think we had quite a celebration of VA Day.
But you didn't pack up the family and down?
No, I never went to the celebration. No, but I'm sure they had a big celebration.
What about VJ Day? You remember?
Huh?
VJ? Do you remember anything on VJ Day?
Yeah, I guess I'm talking about VJ Day when they had a bigger celebration on VJ Day than I did it on VE Day, I guess, when Germany quit. And when the war ended altogether with Japan stopping, I think the celebration was even more when we just were still at war with Japan and Germany just collapsed. As I remember it. But of course, they were both very big days in all media. It's quite a feat when Germany laid down her arms and stopped that terrible slaughter. That was the first war, you know, that bombs were dropped on civilian cities. Hitler started, of course, and then we went right along with them, did the same thing. We even had the delayed bomb, where people would get out of the city and then come back, and the delayed bombs would go off when they returned to the city. I think we were the only ones that had the delayed bomb.
The firebombing was the.
Huh?
The firebombing was the thing that really destroyed a lot of.
Yeah, and the World War, Second World War is the time we bombed only military installations. We bombed the first World War to bomb civilian cities. It never was done before, as I understand it. I think I'm right on that. It was bombing civilians in the city was never done in any war. Military installations only.
They didn't really have the air power to do that.
Huh?
So they didn't really even have the air power.
Well, I suppose that had something to do with it. Yeah, and of course Hitler started it. He did it in England, and that brought us into the deal, and we started doing it too, very extensively.
I guess they didn't bomb them, but they did have, like the Civil War, they had scorched earth policies and burned Atlanta.
Cannons.
Well, they burned, yeah, they did lob cannons into the city, didn't they? Several of the towns. Charleston, they lobbed things into the city. They bombed, I guess they bombed from ships. I guess that probably wouldn't be right. In our Civil War, they bombed cities.
And as much as Joe was against the war, he's the only president, I think, that really had sons that were right in the middle of it. Joe and was killed, of course, in his last expedition, and John was in a PT boat when it was bombed and capsized. I think he was in the water 24 hours or something like that. The two boys were Robert was in there too. I think Robert was in the war, but Joe's boys. As much as Joe was against war, his boys went right in voluntarily as soon as the war started. And I thought that was quite something. Most people with the power that Joe had, I'm sure he could have kept his boys out of there. He had the power to do it. But those boys, one died and one seriously injured. Very lucky to be. I think they swam some 12 or 13 hours to get to an island.
All right, you got to read this for the.
Huh? All right.
Read that.
All right. Ready to read it now?
You remember the title? Give the title first. I don't think it's. You have to remember it. I don't think my mom put it on there.
No, it's not on there.
You remember the title?
No. No. No, I don't.
It's the guy next door.
The guy next door, he works too hard. Makes me feel guilty 'cause I am retired. He's out in his garden with the rising suns. I'm still unaware the day has begun. My time for golf starts around 10. He's cleaned his garden of weeds by then. He keeps his lawn as neat as can be. I look at mine and head for the tee. He keeps it clipped around shrub and tree. A task I dread is too tedious for me. The women all around think she's just great. They refer to me as a town reprobate. I must do something to save this jerk before he becomes addicted to the demon work. If I can channel energy working at tee to green, both our lives, I do believe, will be much more serene.
See, I remember that as a kid. I remember you.
Huh?
I remember you saying that right when you retired. I think it's probably written soon after you retired.
It's funny, I got into a season there when I wrote that whole book, and I stopped all of a sudden, and I kind of started all of a sudden, just writing poetry, and then I maybe lasted for a year or two, and I never wrote anything since then. Just at certain years in my life that I wrote all these poems.
Well, it was probably pretty quickly after you retired. You probably did a lot of those things. You probably.
I don't know what caused it.
What year did you retire?
1969.
Yeah, I bet that's when your journal started, and that's when you wrote the poetry. And
I can't remember how many years that I did it, but it kind of amazes me now that I just wrote that book in this amount of time, and then the poems just didn't seem to come anymore. Kind of odd.
well, anything else that?
I guess that's about it, Louis. I think I've covered everything. That gives you a pretty good idea, I think,
I think so.
of my life. And I don't think anybody's got anything that complete. My biography that I wrote, that journal I wrote was more complete than I thought it was. When you were reading it today, I didn't realize that I wrote that much before I stopped. And that's another thing, like my poetry. I just kind of stopped all of a sudden and never did start again. I've always thought day by day that I was going to start writing again, but I never, just never did. Just that short time, 1975 or 1976, I quit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there wasn't much after 74. There was a couple entries, but not much. Yeah, 74, 75.
Yeah, I had every intention of continuing that biography all through my life, but I stopped and never got back at it again. Yeah, so that was. This gives you a lot more complete story. It's the only complete story I think that anybody has of my life. I think we've gone through this thing pretty completely from beginning to end.